Welcome to the story of Hanabi and Mugi, two high school students who seem like the perfect couple. But here's the catch. They're only pretending to date because they're both in love with other people. Hanabi loves her teacher and Mugi loves his tutor. Ouch, right? This anime isn't your typical love story. It dives into the messy, complicated feelings that come with unrequited love and the need for comfort. Hanabi and Mugi make a deal to help each other feel less lonely, but things get tangled as emotions grow more intense. With its mix of drama, romance, and humor, this story is definitely going to keep you on the edge of your seats. But before we jump into all that, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell for more updates in the future. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that thumbs up as well. Let's begin. Hanabi is alone in a classroom after school, daydreaming about Akane when he suddenly walks in. They chat briefly but tease each other about being too casual with their names while at school. Their conversation is cut short when Akane enters the room. Akane immediately brightens up and Hanabi feels disheartened. Akane then leaves Hanabi to talk to Akane, so Hanabi silently walks out, bumping into Mugi outside the classroom. While standing close to Hanabi, Mugi notices her calm demeanor. Later, the two head to a quiet spot behind the school and kiss casually. Back in April, Hanabi is excited about Kanai being her homeroom teacher. At one instance, she is happily making her way to Kanai to hand him over some handouts. However, her happiness fades as she notices how happy he looks whenever he's with Akane. It becomes clear to Hanabi that Kanai has feelings for Akane, which deeply disappoints her. Later, Kanai comes to Hanabi's house for dinner with her and her mother. Kanai seems to enjoy himself and compliments the food. The mother, being a top-tier wingman that she is, constantly reminds Kanai how excited Hanabi was for this dinner and how she even helped prepare the dinner that Kanai is finding so delicious. Obviously, Hanabi is nervous during this interaction, but she pretends not to show it to Kanai. Meanwhile, Kanai continues to mention how delicious the food is anyways. After dinner, Hanabi walks Kanai home. During that, Kanai mentions how he doesn't have the luxury to taste such tasty food every day since he lives with his father. Then, he brings up the topic of hoping to find a suitable girl for marriage. This prompts Hanabi to think if Kanai has someone specific in his mind. Moreover, it also triggers a memory from their past. When Hanabi was in elementary school, it was field day, and since she didn't have a father, Kanai joined her in the three-legged race. This made some of her classmates, especially Mocha, angry. Mocha accused Hanabi of cheating because Kanai was helping her. In return, Hanabi pointed out that Mocha's fancy running shoes were unfair, which shifted the attention away from her. Hanabi then ran off to hide and sat alone behind the school. Not long after, Kanai found her there and cheered her up by sharing the lunch her mother packed for them. They talked about how both of them only had one parent and promised to support each other when they felt lonely. Back in the present, Hanabi drops Kanai off at his house and walks away in tears, recalling that Kanai lied to him. At school day, Hanabi accidentally bumps into Akane, causing her to fall and scatter some sheet music. Hanabi is angry about the encounter, but before she can react, Mugi steps in and helps Akane pick up her papers. Watching them interact, Hanabi realizes that Mugi seems to share her struggles. This sparks a bond between the two, and they start spending time together as they support each other in dealing with their unrequited feelings for Kanai and Akane. As Hanabi and Mugi's friendship grows, they start meeting frequently. One day, while at Mugi's house after school, Hanabi suddenly hugs him, surprising him. During their conversation, they come up with an idea. They will start a friends with benefits relationship. The idea is that they will use each other to fill the emotional void caused by their unreturned love. Hanabi can imagine Mugi as Kanai, and Mugi can imagine Hanabi as Akane. They try this out, and Hanabi finds herself surprised by how much the fantasy works for her. While they share this intimate moment, Hanabi receives a message from Kanai, thanking her for dinner earlier. The timing is just impeccable.
I feel for Mugi. Dude must be feeling so embarrassed.
After that text message, both Mugi and Hanabi decide to stop for the day. Mugi then asks Hanabi if she wants to make this arrangement a regular thing, but Hanabi doesn't answer right away. Later, Hanabi harshly rejects a confession from a boy at the back of the school. Unable to take the rejection, the boy tells Hanabi how he had high expectations from her. In response, Hanabi straight up tells him how it sucks a lot when someone you care about a lot doesn't reciprocate the same feelings. Afterward, Hanabi thinks about her new arrangement with Mugi. She recalls how she couldn't let go of what she had and not Mugi himself, but the Kanai that she can see through Mugi. She remembers going back to his house to give him her answer. Initially, Mugi didn't expect Hanabi to return, but eventually they agree to make the arrangement official but set clear rules. They will stop if either of them succeed in winning over their real love, or if either of them start falling for each other. They also promise that the only thing they will share was their physical relationship. To seal the deal, they even make a pinky promise and decide to tell others they are dating if anyone asks. Hanabi thinks that this officially makes them friends with benefit. However, Mugi points out how that cannot be the case since they haven't shared the bed together with each other yet. On the other hand, Hanabi believes there's nothing wrong in that if one of them is ever feeling lonely. After school one day, Akane asks Hanabi if they can walk home together, mentioning that it's been a long time since they did so. Just then, Mugi shows up, and Akane changes her mind, saying Hanabi should walk home with her boyfriend instead. As Hanabi and Mugi leave, Akane watches them with a blank, sad expression. At the same time, the other students are envious of Mugi for scoring such a pretty girl like Hanabi. On the way home, Mugi asks Hanabi if she is sure she didn't want to walk back home with her friend. Instead of responding, Hanabi asks Mugi for his water bottle. Just then, Mugi attempts to lean in to kiss Hanabi, but they're suddenly interrupted by a random girl named Mocha. Mocha explains how she knows Mugi. When they were kids, they lived next door to each other. Adults would say they looked like a prince and princess when they played together. This idea stuck with Mocha, and she decided to act like a princess to match Mugi. As she grew up, she kept her hair long, avoided boys, and surrounded herself with cute things to become worthy of him. Now, clinging to Mugi's arm, Mocha acts very childishly. Hanabi realizes Mocha is the same girl who caused trouble during the field day years ago, accusing her of cheating in the three-legged race. Mocha remembers the event too, but believes Hanabi was the bad one. Mocha accuses Hanabi of tricking Mugi into being her boyfriend and says she's been hiding her mean personality. To Hanabi's surprise, Mugi agrees that she is horrible, but he says it's part of who she is. Hanabi smiles and tells Mugi she likes him. Then she grabs Mocha by the collar, pulling her close, and warns her to stay away from Mugi. Later, on the school roof, Hanabi and Mugi talk. Hanabi tells Mugi he should let Mocha down gently if he cares about her. Mugi asks if she's jealous, but Hanabi says she's just possessive. They kiss, but Hanabi isn't sure if she's being honest with herself. During lunch at school one day, Mocha invites herself to join Hanabi and Mugi. When Hanabi tries to share her food with Mugi, Mocha gets upset. Hanabi defends herself, but Mocha snaps back, claiming Hanabi is only using Mugi to seem more popular. Hanabi and Mugi don't deny it, which makes Mocha angry. She runs off, flustered, past Akane, who overhears Mocha's claim. Later, Hanabi helps Kanai carry a large stack of booklets to another room. They end up alone together, and Hanabi thinks it might be her chance to confess her feelings. Before she can, they hear music coming from a nearby room. Akane is playing the piano, and Kanai quietly says how good she is. Feeling disheartened, Hanabi doesn't confess. That evening, Hanabi and Mugi go to karaoke. If only that could have gone to a more common place when it comes to dating.
I'm sure your experiences in karaoke bars are only of getting kicked out.
Hanabi vents her frustrations by singing. Mugi asks if she's thought about giving up on Kanai and finding someone else. Annoyed, Hanabi avoids the question and hands Mugi the other microphone so they can sing together. Before the song ends, Hanabi starts crying. She tells Mugi that Kanai is the only one for her and says he should understand because they're in similar situations. Mugi agrees and starts getting closer to her. As they become intimate, Mugi remembers being with Mei. The memory makes him pause. Hanabi notices and asks if something is wrong, but Mugi tells her to see him as Kanai, not himself. They continue, with Mugi imagining Hanabi as Akane. Meanwhile, on a train, Ekhan thinks about Mocha's accusation that Hanabi is using Mugi. She wonders if it's actually the other way around. At school, some girls nervously ask Hanabi for romance advice. Later, on the roof, Mugi encourages her to help them since she doesn't have many female friends. He playfully ruffles her hair, and Hanabi is surprised by how she felt, thinking it's almost like he's her real boyfriend. Hanabi goes out to eat with the girls, who explain that one of them is dating two guys at the same time and can't decide who to choose. Hanabi asks which one she likes more, but the girl says she doesn't have strong feelings for either and just feels stressed about deciding. Hanabi can't relate to this. The girl's friend suggests picking the one who offers more benefits. This answer confuses Hanabi. Later, Hanabi talks to Ekhan about how people choose who they love. Ekhan says she never thought about gaining something or having an advantage when she fell for someone. Relieved, Hanabi hugs her and says she feels the same. Hanabi then invites Ekhan to a sleepover, and Ekhan agrees. Ekhan, nervous, packs for the sleepover and wonders if they'll have to share a bed. That evening, she arrives at Hanabi's apartment, excited but also uneasy. She mentions her feelings, admitting she messed things up. A flash forward shows Ekhan straddling Hanabi on the bed, having just kissed her. Hanabi looks shocked, while Ekhan regrets what she did and scolds herself in her thoughts. Ekhan is on a train heading to her exam when an unknown man starts touching her from behind. She is too shocked to react. Hanabi, who is standing next to Ekhan, notices what is happening. Quietly, she asks Ekhan if the man is bothering her. Ekhan, with tears forming in her eyes, shows Hanabi her exam papers in her bag, hinting that she is too scared to say anything. Hanabi, also heading to the same exam, pulls out her phone, holds it up to the man's face, and snaps a photo. The camera's loud shutter sound catches the attention of other passengers, and the man awkwardly backs away. When they get off the train, Hanabi holds Ekhan's hand and encourages her to let herself cry, saying it is okay to feel shaken after what has happened. Ekhan nods, and her tears finally start falling. Hanabi stays by her side as they walk to the exam venue, never letting go of her hand. That night, during a sleepover at Hanabi's apartment, Ekhan thinks back to the train incident and realizes it is the moment she starts falling in love with Hanabi. Woke culture is going to be pretty happy with this.
I guess we can say Hanabi is exploring her options.
Later, Hanabi shares a conversation she has had with two girls who asked her for advice about love. Hanabi explains that their unhealthy views on relationships will only lead them to loneliness. Talking about it leaves her feeling down, so Ekhan suggests they go to bed. The two girls share Hanabi's small bed, lying so close together that Ekhan feels extremely nervous. Around 2 a.m., Ekhan turns to face Hanabi, who is already lying on her side. Ekhan watches her sleep for a moment, but then Hanabi opens her eyes and catches her staring. Hanabi softly asks what Ekhan's crush is like. This surprises Ekhan, but after thinking for a moment, she makes a bold choice. She cups Hanabi's face in her hands and kisses her. Hanabi, startled, gasps in shock. Ekhan then moves on top of Hanabi, holding herself up as she breathes heavily. Hanabi looks up at her, wide-eyed and confused. Ekhan asks why Hanabi Hanabi is with Mugi, even though she doesn't truly like him. She says she can tell from the empty look on Hanabi's face whenever she is with him. Hanabi, surprised that Akane has figured her out, admits the truth about her relationship with Mugi. Akane, not wanting to hold back her feelings anymore, offers to be Hanabi's source of comfort instead. She confesses her love for Hanabi. After Akane leaves, Hanabi lies in bed thinking about everything that has happened. Her mother interrupts her thoughts, asking her to run an errand. While walking to the store, Hanabi remembers rejecting a boy who confessed his feelings for her back in school. She had told him that there is nothing worse than being loved by someone she doesn't care about. Reflecting on Akane's confession, Hanabi feels the emotional weight of being loved by someone. On her walk, Hanabi runs into Mocha, who is coming from the opposite direction. Mocha tries to confront her, accusing Hanabi of trying to take Mugi away from her. She begs Hanabi not to steal him, saying Mugi is the only one for her. Hanabi ignores her completely and keeps walking. Later, Hanabi thinks about the advice she has given to the girl before, realizing she is in a similar situation herself, torn between Mugi and Kanae. This realization leaves her feeling sad and defeated. Meanwhile, Mugi's friends are talking about the girls at their school, specifically Mei, whom they say is very attractive. Trying to fit in, Mugi agrees with them, but isn't really paying attention. Mei seems to notice Mugi and takes an interest in him. At some point later, they are in bed together, but Mugi feels stiff and nervous. He can't even look at Mei as she touches him. Suddenly, Mugi wakes up from this dream, realizing it has caused him to have a wet dream. Mugi wakes up to find Hanabi standing in his room, having let herself in. Embarrassed, he quickly pulls the covers over himself. To his surprise, Hanabi climbs into bed with him and cuddles close. He tries to stop her, but she notices his boner. Feeling nervous, he tells her to touch it. In another scene, Mugi is sitting on a grassy hill by a river with Mei. She tells him she won't be attending high school anymore. Mugi begins to cry, but Mei reminds him that he's in love with Akane. They talk briefly about their relationship, and Mei apologizes for taking away his teenage years. Mugi stays silent, keeping his real feelings about her, which are deeper than she realizes to himself. Back in bed, Mugi stops Hanabi before she can touch him, saying he wouldn't be able to stop himself if she does. Hanabi surprises him by telling him not to hold back. Reluctantly, Mugi lets her touch him, though Hanabi is inexperienced and doesn't know what to do at first. She finds it cute how vulnerable he looks in the moment. Later, Hanabi wonders why she feels so scared to touch Akane during their sleepover, yet it feels so easy with Mugi. She decides it's because she feels comfortable with him and tells him so. When Mugi asks why, she straddles him and teases him playfully, but then she suddenly starts crying. Mugi is shocked and finally pays attention to her. Hanabi tells him she wants to try loving him. Later, Mugi and Hanabi are eating together in a restaurant. Mugi promises to return her clothes clean, and Hanabi lightly scolds him. She suddenly notices Akane walking in with a tall, blonde man. Mugi turns to see them too. The four of them share an awkward silence, until the man asks Akane how she knows Mugi and Hanabi. Akane explains that they're her students. As they talk, Hanabi wonders if the man is Akane's brother. The man kisses Akane's neck inappropriately, making her uncomfortable. She tries to stop him, but he grabs her wrist and pulls her away. As they leave, Akane gives Hanabi a sly look and suggests they keep what happened a secret. Later, Mugi tells Hanabi he recognized the man with Akane. He reveals that the man used to be one of Akane's tutoring students, just like Mugi was. With a sad, clueless smile, Mugi guesses they were probably just working together. Frustrated, Hanabi walks away, thinking about how blind love can make people. She also realizes she's starting to hate Akane. Hanabi later confronts Akane, asking if the man at the restaurant is her boyfriend. Akane denies it, claiming he's just a friend. Hanabi is confused and wonders why Akane wanted to keep it a secret if it isn't something inappropriate. Before she can ask more, the school bell rings, and Akane hurries off, wearing the same outfit as the day before. As she leaves, Hanabi doesn't notice Akane's smug smirk. Hey guys, I know I'm interrupting the video, but I'm just here to remind you that most of you guys watching this video are not actually subscribed to the channel. So if you're enjoying this video so far, make sure you click that subscribe button and hit the notification bell for more updates in the future. Now let's get straight back into the video. Akane is sitting on a mostly empty train when two men sit on either side of her. Smiling, she thinks to herself that attention doesn't matter unless it's from someone who desires you. She explains that she doesn't know why, but being wanted feels so good. As she reflects, Akane remembers an incident from her teenage years. In the memory, a boy named Saito, who was her friend's crush, approaches her to return a handkerchief she dropped. While accepting it, Akane notices her friend hiding in the shadows, watching them. Saito, unaware of the friend's presence, seems surprised when Akane lightly touches his hand as she takes the handkerchief. This small action causes him to move closer to her. Believing she hasn't been noticed, the heartbroken friend quietly walks away. Later, Akane finds her friend crying alone by the edge of a pond. Akane mentions that she didn't feel guilty or superior at that moment. Instead, she realized she would rather die than be exploited like her friend. She believes this was the moment she discovered how much she enjoyed manipulating others. In the present, Akane is in bed with Terauchi, the man Hanabi and Mugi saw her with at the restaurant. While he tries to be intimate with her, Akane remains indifferent and asks about the girl he was dating. Terauchi tells her they broke up long ago. Hearing this, Akane's indifference turns to disinterest. She mentions that without anyone around to value him, Terauchi has no appeal to her. Ouch! That's gotta hurt that fragile ego of Terauchi's.
Akane out here roasting people as if that's just her job.
Later, Akane is walking outside with Kanae and notices Hanabi watching them from a window. She smirks, thinking Hanabi must really love Kanai. Akane mentions that she can't tell how good someone is unless others show interest in them. Kanai asks her if she'd like to go to a cafe with him after work, but seeing Hanabi nearby, Akane chooses to suggest they meet on campus instead. Later, Hanabi confronts Akane, asking if Teruchi is her boyfriend. Smiling, Akane denies it, but blames Hanabi's pain on her own actions. Akane calls noticing Hanabi being popular with boys and seeing Mocha sadly watch Hanabi and Mugi sharing an umbrella. What interested her most, though, was how Hanabi acted differently around Kanai. After realizing Hanabi's feelings for him, Akane decided to lead Kanai on to hurt her. When Kanai asked Akane to meet him in the music room, she planned it so Hanabi would overhear. In the music room, Kanai remembers seeing Akane for the first time 3 months earlier. Her hair reminded him of his late mother, and it was love at first sight. During their first conversation, Akane kindly brushed a cherry blossom petal from his hair and suggested they support each other as new teachers. Now, Kanai nervously confesses his love for Akane as Hanabi secretly watches from the doorway, just as Akane planned. Overwhelmed, Hanabi runs away and hides in an empty classroom. Sitting on the floor and hugging her knees, she wonders why the tears she expected to cry aren't coming. Hanabi sits on the floor of an empty classroom, hugging her knees. She realizes she isn't crying because she has no right to feel hurt. She never confessed her feelings for Kanai, so she feels she has no claim to him. She wonders if Kanai and Akane will start dating and immediately hopes they don't. She reflects on why she never told Kanai how she felt, thinking it might have been fear of losing the closeness they shared. A vision of her younger self appears, scolding her for hesitating and telling her that's why she lost him. Later, Hanabi goes to Mugi's apartment but hesitates before ringing the doorbell. She realizes that telling him about Kanai and Akane would only hurt him, so she decides to leave. As she walks away, Akane suddenly appears, surprising her. Hanabi asks if Akane has been following her. Embarrassed, Akane admits it, saying she was worried Hanabi was upset with her. Hanabi stares at Akane, wondering why she likes her so much. Overwhelmed, Hanabi hugs Akane tightly, and both girls start crying. While hugging, Hanabi apologizes for the closeness, saying it might make things worse. Akane reassures her that it's okay and kisses her. Hanabi knows it's wrong but doesn't stop her. Later, Akane straddles Hanabi on her bed, holding her hand. Akane mentions how the sudden rain that night came without warning. She intertwines her fingers with Hanabi's but notices Hanabi doesn't grip back. Akane asks if Hanabi is nervous. Hanabi admits she is, but says it's because Akane is her friend. Hanabi tries to turn her head away, but Akane kisses her passionately and asks if this is something friends do. She compares it to what Hanabi does with Mugi, which makes Hanabi's eyes fill with tears. Seeing this, Akane pulls back, looking ashamed. She tells Hanabi she can stop her if she wants, but Hanabi, struggling to stay calm, says she won't because she cares about Akane. Akane realizes Hanabi is sacrificing her own feelings to make her happy because she's afraid of losing her. Deciding to take advantage of this, Akane begins to be intimate with Hanabi. Hanabi, uncomfortable, tries to imagine confessing to Kanai in her usual fantasy, but it doesn't work. She can't block out what's happening with Akane. Akane insists Hanabi be present with her and tells her to say what she wants. Flustered, Hanabi refuses. Akane uses another approach, touching Hanabi under the covers and asks again if she should stop. When Hanabi doesn't respond, Akane assumes she's just weak to intimacy. Hanabi firmly tells her that it only feels good because it's Akane. Akane cradles Hanabi's head to her chest and tells her it feels good because she loves her so much. She says that love can be felt through touch, which makes Hanabi cry. Later, Hanabi walks alone under an umbrella, feeling lonely. A vision of her younger self reappears, teasing her about taking advantage of Akane's feelings and saying she's no better than Akane now. The younger version congratulates her and runs off laughing. Depressed, Hanabi reflects that she already knew this. Hanabi decides to confront Akane in an empty classroom. Akane teases her, asking if she's mad about Mugi or Kanai. Hanabi bitterly wonders if this means Akane always knew about Mugi's feelings. Akane smirks and guesses that Mugi is using Hanabi to fill the void because he can't have her. Frustrated, Hanabi loudly asks if being loved by people she doesn't care about is fun. Akane is thrilled by this question, letting her blouse drop to expose her bra straps. Flushed and sensual, she tells Hanabi there's nothing better than being desired. Horrified, Hanabi watches as Akane licks her lips, looking like a predator. Hanabi shares how her life changes after her father leaves when she's a child. Her mother shows the sadness Hanabi wants to show, so Hanabi acts strong in front of her, trying to be brave. This makes her feel lonely and takes the happiness out of her life. She explains that Kanai is the only person who brings joy and safety back to her. With him, she can cry the tears she hides from her mother. Now, she wonders why she feels abandoned by him. Hanabi wakes up to find Akane sleeping next to her. She notices how soft and shiny Akane's hair is. Akane wakes up and faces her. For a moment, Hanabi sees Akane instead of Akane. Akane asks what's wrong, but Hanabi relaxes and says good morning. Meanwhile, Mugi lies in bed thinking about Akane. He knows what she is really like and remembers how Hanabi angrily leaves him at the window the other day. He decides not to tell her the truth about Akane because he is afraid she will hate him. He laughs bitterly at the thought. He remembers how he finds out the truth about Akane. One evening, after being close with Mei, they talk about Akane. Mei says Akane is manipulative, but Mugi defends her. Mei ignores him and takes him to a love hotel. hotel. Hidden nearby, they watch Akane enter the hotel with an older man. Mei looks smug, and Mugi cries himself to sleep that night. The next day, Akane comes to tutor Mugi, and he notices she is wearing the same clothes as the night before. He realizes she always needs a man and thinks she seems fragile. Even though he knows she's using him, he cannot resist her. Later, while talking about Akane with Mei in bed, she bites his ear out of annoyance. Mugi realizes Mei is jealous and wonders how Hanabi would react. He imagines she will insult him and decides to contact Mei. Mei agrees to meet and casually suggests going to a hotel. Embarrassed, Mugi tries to explain he does not want anything sexual, but Mei ignores him and leads the way. My guy likes being dominated, eh? Don't think anyone noticed. You do you, bro.
I'm getting genuinely concerned for your mental state.
At the hotel, Mugi bites her ear gently during intimacy. Mei cries a little, but he does not notice. Afterward, they bathe together, and Mei blushes, saying it is the first time he takes the lead. She says they are even now and leaves early. At school, Hanabi notices Mugi acting distant. They do not spend time alone, and their conversations feel shallow. She wonders if he is hiding something, just like she is hiding Kanai's confession. Thinking about her connection with Akane, she thinks she might not need Mugi anymore. But before she acts, she suddenly kisses him. Surprised, Mugi kisses her back and asks if she has been with someone else. Hanabi says yes and explains it starts to feel good. Mugi agrees, saying they are similar, even in their flaws. Akane feels bored with her dull teacher routine and slumps over her piano. Kanai's presence briefly breaks her boredom. Later, at Mugi's apartment, he kisses Hanabi and pushes her against the door. She looks up at him shyly, and he notices her pretty eyes. A strange thought comes to him. He wants to ruin her, which disturbs him. Hanabi touches Mugi's hand, bringing him out of his thoughts. Avoiding his eyes, she takes his hand, presses it to her cheek, and says they should sleep together. Meanwhile, Kanai visits Akane to ask if she has an answer to his confession. Akane acts charming as usual, but feels uninterested inside. She hates the idea of returning anyone's feelings, especially Kanai's, who she finds boring. Even though she doesn't care, she invites him out that evening, though her eyes briefly show her true feelings. Later, at a restaurant, Akane drinks more than planned and complains about boring people. Kanai thinks she's talking about her students and tries to comfort her. As they leave, Akane stumbles drunkenly, but Kanai catches her before she falls. He asks if she's hurt and calls her Hana-chan by mistake. Embarrassed, he apologizes, but Akane's expression turns strange. She smiles in a weird way, kisses him, and then awkwardly pulls away, thinking her boring day just got interesting. At Mugi's apartment, as they undress, Mugi notices a fading hickey on Hanabi's collarbone. He leans in and renews it. Hanabi says again that they should go all the way, surprising Mugi. He laughs nervously and reminds her it would break their rules. Meanwhile, Akane wakes up in a motel room with her clothes slightly messy. She remembers humoring Kanai after their kiss and letting him show her a favorite spot in the city. Now Kanai is kneeling beside her, nervously asking if she's sure about this. Akane is shocked by his need for permission and sees his respect as weakness. She wonders what Hanabi sees in him. Testing him, she brings up Hanabi, saying they seem close. Kanai awkwardly explains that they live near each other and he sees her as a sister. Pretending to be jealous, Akane softly says she envies Hanabi. Trying to reassure her, Kanai kisses her. Akane, with empty eyes, thinks about how easy it is to manipulate him. Back at Mugi's, Hanabi tries to be intimate with him, but it hurts, so she stops. Embarrassed and teary-eyed, she rolls over. Mugi notices she feels cold, covers her with a blanket, and tells her not to catch a cold. Hanabi turns to him, presses her forehead to his chest, and sadly asks why they can't sleep together. Mugi hesitates and says it's because she doesn't love him. Shocked, Hanabi insists she does. Mugi questions her sudden desire, saying something seems off. Hurt, Hanabi gets dressed to leave. Before she goes, Mugi stops her and asks if she's a virgin. She pauses, looks him in the eye, and says yes before leaving. Alone, Mugi stares at the ceiling, while Hanabi curls up on her bed, feeling empty. She narrates how much she hates being alone, and admits she just wants to sleep with someone. Later, while walking down a school corridor, Hanabi crosses paths with Akane. Without stopping or looking at her, Akane smirks and softly says she slept with Kanai the night before. Hanabi freezes in shock as Akane walks away, leaving her behind. Hanabi sits alone at her desk, thinking about Akane's brag about Kanai. She wonders if manipulating people's feelings makes Akane feel good. Hanabi guesses it must, believing Akane wants to take control of everyone who adores her. Suddenly, the glowing figure of her younger self reappears, questioning her about the harm this could cause others. Hanabi hesitates, but then confronts her child self with a crazed look. She admits she knows it's selfish, but says she craves the feelings others have for Akane and wants to beat her. Falling to her knees, Hanabi declares that if she doesn't, she'll feel completely empty. Child Hanabi looks at her with cold disapproval and says feelings can't be stolen, and doing so won't make her happy. This angers Hanabi. Later, Hanabi, acting unusually cheerful, meets with Mugi and suggests they start dating for real. She mentions that they already get along well, could make a good couple, and she's confident he'll fall in love with her. I like that confidence, but let's hope the opposite doesn't happen.
Fingers crossed for my favorite couple to end up together.
Mugi says nothing, but kisses her in response. Shortly after, Hanabi arranges to meet Akane and tells her about her decision to date Mugi. She admits she's selfish, but says Akane is the one person she can't bring herself to use anymore. Eshan, unfazed, tells Hanabi it's fine, and suggests she keep using her. Startled, Hanabi listens, as Eshan calmly says she had expected something like this. Eshan kisses kisses her, and Hanabi, tearing up, pushes her away. Looking down and unable to meet Ekhan's eyes, Hanabi shakily says they shouldn't see each other outside school anymore. Ekhan doesn't seem bothered and brushes it off, prompting Hanabi to run away. As she flees, Hanabi mentions her struggle over whether to look back. Ekan, smiling faintly, watches her leave and vows not to let her go. During a free period, Hanabi and a classmate head to the library to read. As they pass Ekan's classroom, Ekan notices them and decides to follow. At the library, Ekan joins them, sitting next to Hanabi, who is confused by her cheerful behavior, especially after their conversation the day before. Without anyone noticing, Ekan places her hand on Hanabi's thigh, sliding it higher under her skirt. Blushing and tearing up, Hanabi tries to stay calm and quiet. Overwhelmed by a mix of stress and her sleep deprivation-induced fever, Hanabi faints. Hanabi wakes up in the school infirmary with Ekan sitting beside her. Ekan, acting friendly, scolds her for not mentioning she had a fever. Hanabi, still flushed, softly says Ekan didn't give her the chance. Ekan suddenly leans over, apologizes, and kisses her. Hanabi protests, saying they shouldn't keep doing this, but Ekan reassures her no one knows about them. Switching topics, Ekan asks about Hanabi's relationship with Mugi, guessing it's a scheme to get someone else's attention. She remarks that all the effort makes her jealous. Hanabi, hiding under the blanket, denies it. Watching her, Ekan mentions that she'll accept Hanabi no matter how broken or hurt she becomes. Ekan advises Hanabi that making a man fall for you is easy, just pretend to be genuinely vulnerable, but don't actually be vulnerable because that would hurt too much. Hanabi wonders if she wants to be truly genuine, but Ekan asks what's wrong with keeping your real self hidden. This reminds Hanabi of Akane, making her think they might share the same sadness and loneliness. She wonders if Akane feels the same emptiness she does. While running errands for her mother, Hanabi unexpectedly runs into Terauchi, the man she and Mugi once saw at a restaurant with Akane. To her surprise, he recognizes her too. Initially uncomfortable with Terauchi's lack of respect for personal space, Hanabi remembers her goal of taking the people who adore Akane and decides to give him her phone number when he asks her out. While waiting to meet him, she wonders if this plan will really make her happy. When Terauchi arrives, their date leads them to a karaoke room. There, he starts making moves to get closer to her, but Hanabi avoids this by asking about his relationship with Akane. He casually says he knows she has other partners and will never be his, showing complete indifference. Hanabi is surprised by this lack of attachment and realizes that if Terauchi doesn't care about Akane, then there's nothing to steal from her. Even so, Hanabi continues her mission, not only to beat Akane, but also to feel wanted and loved. As Terauchi kisses her, she mentions that because she hides her true feelings deep inside, she feels empty when others touch her. When Terauchi suggests going to a love motel, Hanabi declines, saying she doesn't have feelings for him. Smirking, he tells her that if the body feels good, emotions will come later. This makes Hanabi think about Mugi. She wonders if, while being intimate with him and thinking of Kanai, she was secretly longing for Mugi too. Terauchi continues trying to persuade her, but Hanabi asks if things that feel good can make a person stupid. He dismisses her concern, which irritates her. She accuses him of being shallow, which offends him. Terauchi considers leaving, and Hanabi panics, imagining Akane mocking her. Determined to salvage the moment, she manages to keep Terauchi interested. As he hugs her with empty eyes, she mentions, just as emotionless, that she'll keep pretending until he falls for this fake version of her. After they part ways, Hanabi reflects on what she's learned about herself. She realizes Akane has enough self-respect to feel confident no matter what others think. In contrast, Hanabi relies on the opinions of others for her self-worth. She concludes that the ability to destroy someone with a single rejection must be what love is. Walking home, she tearfully watches Kanai through his apartment window. In a dream, Hanabi recalls a childhood memory with Kanai. She remembers relatives telling her that her father left because of her birth, making her believe he didn't want her. Crying, she shares this with Kanai, who firmly tells her it wasn't her fault and explains that relationships can fall apart even when love is involved. When she asks if this will happen to them, Kanai promises it won't because they'll never fall in love. Hanabi wakes up in tears, realizing she doesn't know what it's like to kiss someone she truly loves. Later, Ekan confronts Mugi and warns him not to let his guard down because Hanabi is popular with guys. As she walks away, Mugi recalls noticing a hickey on Hanabi's collarbone, left by someone else. Ekan's comment makes him worry that Hanabi might still be seeing others even though they're officially dating. Around the corner, Ekan smirks to herself, deciding to renew the hickey since it's likely faded. When Mugi and Hanabi kiss goodbye, he asks if she wants to come to his place. Avoiding his gaze, she declines. Mugi acknowledges that their intimacy feels normal but can't shake his suspicions. On his way home, Mocha stops him and insists Hanabi doesn't truly want him, which Mugi doesn't deny. Mocha pleads with him, saying that if only he loved Hanabi so much that her indifference wouldn't matter, she could move on. Instead, she asks why she can't be with him too. Mugi, emotionless, suggests they go on a date. Mocha silently cries but agrees. Mugi wonders if he should tell her he's not her ideal prince, but decides not to because he does care for her. Unable to sleep, Hanabi ignores texts from Terauchi.
Mocha reminisces how she has only ever went on a date once in her life. It was quite ordinary as she doesn't even remember the name of the body she dated. Back in the present, Mocha appears fresh and happy on the breakfast. Just then, her father appears and tells Mocha that she is up early, but she quickly pushes her father out of the dining room, not wanting to ruin her mood. Later, Mocha is seen preparing for a special occasion. It seems that her lifelong dream is finally coming true, a date with the love of her life, Mugi. Although Mocha is preparing herself for this occasion, she is adamant that she's wanting to look good just for herself and not Mugi. Somewhere else, Hanabi is busy in her phone while Mugi waits patiently. Shortly after, he grabs Hanabi's phone to find out what she has been doing. Immediately, Hanabi tries to grab her phone back, but unintentionally ends up getting too close to Mugi. As Mugi is getting too vulgar with her, Hanabi slaps her with full force. Later, Mugi tries to make it up to Hanabi by chasing her and apologize, but to not avail. He even suggests that they head to the hotel. However, Hanabi has gotten fed up of Mugi constantly thinking about only sleeping with her. When she confronts Mugi about it, he openly accepts that it's all that he thinks about.
That's what I would like to call a man of culture.
Can't blame the guy for speaking his mind. Making his way to Hanabi, Mugi whispers what he is going to do with her body once they get to the hotel, prompting her face to go all red. Just then, Mugi receives a message from presumably Mocha. He then turns to Hanabi and tells her that he has to go. Confused, Hanabi questions who the message was from. In response, Mugi tells her that it was from someone who would let him do her. When the two meet for their first date, Mugi barely gives Mocha a second glance. The two go to a movie where Mocha courageously puts her hand on his in an attempt to validate her feelings. Mugi takes her hand, but she comes to the creeping realization that they aren't really compatible. Still, her love for Mugi is so strong she wants to cling to the memory of this date forever, even though she wonders if she'd ever truly be happy that way. The two then go to dinner. At the same time, Hanabi is engaged in a conflict within herself. She has no idea why she is constantly pushing Mugi away. This internal conflict is taking a huge toll on Hanabi, and now she wants to meet with Mugi and discuss things further. Back at the dinner, Mocha tries to preserve her dream by going home, but ultimately breaks down and confesses her love to Mugi. Without thinking much, Mugi leans in and shares a passionate kiss with Mocha. Simultaneously, Hanabi is still struggling with her inner conflicts. Sometimes she has an urge to meet up with people that she can't, while other times she just wants to be alone. After Mocha's confession, Mugi capitalizes on her feelings and takes her back to his room. Mocha's internal monologue is then shown as she reveals her flaws and admits to her own share of emotional manipulation. Dismissing her pure and innocent persona, Mocha is determined to make Mugi hers by being intimate with him. As the two start making out, Mocha's fear and reluctance begin to come through, and at first, Mugi is unmoved, having her take her clothes off and beginning to touch her body. Mocha is scared, but her love for Mugi and willingness to do what it takes be his meant she was willing to endure, and Mugi knows that. Moreover, he is also aware of what he is doing to his childhood friend. Ultimately, Mugi realizes he can't take advantage of her feelings for him, as their longtime friendship has made Mocha into someone precious to him. Mugi tells Mocha that she is someone very special to him, but Mocha is already aware of that. She also knows that she is like an ornament to Mugi that cannot be touched. However, Mocha is of the completely opposite opinion. She wants to be touched and doesn't even care if she loses her innocence or purity. With tears uncontrollably falling from her eyes, Mocha tells Mugi how she just wanted to live a life in his world. But since she cannot do that, there is no reason for her to stay special anymore. After a good amount of realization, Mocha comes to the conclusion that no matter, she is always going to have feelings for Mugi, whereas he will always hold her special in his eyes. This is something that cannot be helped, and it won't ever let Mocha get what she wants, so she decides to let go of Mugi's hand back in the cinema and leaves. Later, Hanabi and Mugi decide to meet each other, and none of them really pushed for it. Once they come face to face, Hanabi proposes that they confess their feelings for their respective true loves by the end of the summer. Without hesitation, Mugi agrees. This way, both of them can get cleanly rejected before the summer vacation ends, and then they can even begin their official relationship. Mugi and Hanabi discuss about how much the homework is. Hanabi is completely exhausted and just want to study for her entrance exams. She even regrets not starting prep school like Ichan. There, Mugi suggests Hanabi start her school in winter, but she reminds him how her family doesn't have that much money. Out of the blue, Mugi tells Hanabi that he is going to confess his feelings for Akane after homework. Finding courage, Hanabi also excitedly decides to confess her feelings for Kanai at the same time. We are then introduced to a new character, Atsuya, who is talking to a shopkeeper asking for directions. Soon, Ichan arrives just in time and take Atsuya back to her school. Like the other teens in this series, Atsuya is after someone he can't have, Hanabi's good friend, Echan. During their interaction in the classroom, Atsuya starts panicking as soon as he and Echan join their eyes. Then, in a flashback scene, we see Echan meeting with Atsuya after 6 years since childhood. Though it took some time, she eventually recognized Atsuya and was amazed at how much he grew. That day, Atsuya abruptly proposed Echan on a date and got slapped in return. Since that day, it is clear that that Atsuya wants Echan just how badly Hanabi wants Kanae. Later at lunch, Atsuya makes the case that he will wait for Echan and that he's not planning on giving up. They have an interesting conversation about gender labels as Atsuya gets to the bottom of who it is she likes, explaining that Echan likes Hanabi for who she is, not just because she's a girl. The conversation does lead to a deeper realization for Echan, who now reconsiders continuing to hold a candle for a girl who's never going to be hers. Meanwhile, Mugi and Hanabi are spending their intimate time together. While Mugi is on top of her, Hanabi unintentionally tells her to see her as Akane so he can be more passionate. However, this ends up triggering the turning point off for Mugi as he moves away, telling Hanabi that he cannot see her as Akane anymore. Unsure of what to say, Hanabi refrains from commenting on this topic, but she realizes that it's the same case for her, as she cannot see Mugi as Kanae either. Later that night, Mugi and Hanabi go for a walk. After a while, Hanabi decides that it's far enough and asks Mugi to head back. That night, Hanabi looks at the empty sky from her window, reminiscing about how time cannot be turned back. She then recalls a moment in the past with Kanae when he got the license for teaching. The two were very happy that day. Kanae also congratulated Hanabi for getting enrolled in school, but Hanabi emphasizes how this is a day for Kanae since it was his lifelong wish to become a teacher. Kanae is then unable to hold back his tears as he acknowledges just how much Hanabi has grown. He then holds Hanabi's hand, reminding him how they walked hand in hand when she once got lost in her childhood. Kanae even suggests that they walk back home hand in hand once again, a request that Hanabi eventually accepts. In the present, Hanabi plucks up her courage and texts Kanae to meet with her this coming Sunday.
I don't know why, but I have got a bad feeling about this.
I mean, having you around is a bad omen itself. Simultaneously, Mugi texts to meet with Akane on the same day. In a final meeting before their respective conversations, both Mugi and Hanabi seem to have accepted the fact that they would be rejected and grow more at peace with moving on with their lives in a hopeful manner. In their own way, they've grown close as a proper couple. Mugi then embraces Hanabi and assures her that he would see her again the next night. The very next day, Akane meets with Mugi. Mugi thanks her for coming, but Akane tells him that she can do anything for her beloved student. She then asks Mugi if she wanted to discuss something about studies or wanted future advice. Meanwhile, Mugi prepares himself to get rejected by the girl he loves the most. After taking a look at her, Mugi wonders if Akane is going to keep that mask up of hers. Just before he can continue, Akane proposes that they go to a cafe since she is thirsty. There, the two engage in a normal conversation. The conversation led to Mugi wondering if Akane has some favorite pop idols and wonders if she is a tad bit interested in him. So he abruptly tells Akane that he loves her. With no such exaggeration, Akane reveals to Mugi that she knew that. However, Mugi also seems to be aware that Akane knew. Akane adds that she also liked Mugi, an outcome that he had never expected. Just then, Mugi confronts Akane for always playing the innocent little girl, even though she's just playing a game. Eventually, Mugi ends up bringing Akane to her bed and pins her down. While pinning her down, Mugi tells Akane how he is aware that she is just a narcissist and only wants what's better for her. He even believes that it could be anyone in his place, and Akane wouldn't have any worries. In response, Akane asks Mugi why he has come this far then. Mugi responds and mentions that he wants to be her first and that he wants to change her. Meanwhile, Hanabi meets Kanae at the park and is surprisingly good at actually verbalizing her feelings. Too often in teen slice-of-life dramas, the tension lies in the words left unsaid, but Hanabi is able to tell him how she's cared for him for quite some time. After hearing the confession, Kanae is equally distraught over Hanabi's confession, heartbroken that this girl he's known his whole life is suffering so much because of him. As he holds her, she starts crying uncontrollably, but to not give herself away, Hanabi comments that she is only shaking so much because she is not herself right now. And so, as she sobs into the arms of the one she knows she can never have, Hanabi puts her unrequited love to rest, hopeful that she can move on to a better future with Mugi at her side. Hanabi receives a text message from Ichan asking if she has completed her homework. Reading this, Hanabi proceeds to cry, remembering how she worked so hard just to confess her feelings, but got heartbroken in the end. She then thinks how Mugi never returned home that day either. Instead, he just left a text with a sorry. Hanabi has no idea what to make of this, but she is sure that he just wants to trick her. Just then, Ichan texts Hanabi, asking if she would like to go on a trip, prompting Hanabi to quickly agree. The very next day, Hanabi prepares herself and meets with Ichan. The two then head to the vacation site, with Ichan visibly excited, particularly because she gets to spend some time with Hanabi. After reaching the vacation home, Ichan excitingly tells Hanabi that they are going to be alone here, or so she thought. Her dreams are only short-lived when Atsuya opens the house door. Later, the three are having lunch together. During this, Achan is trying to hide her anger as much as she can. At the same time, Hanabi enjoys her lunch that she finds quite delicious. When Atsuya asks Achan if she likes the lunch, she tauntingly tells him that it's bound to be delicious since he made it. There, Hanabi also notices how much Atsuya resembles Achan since he is her cousin. After the lunch, Hanabi makes her way to the kitchen to offer help with washing the dishes, but gets told to go and take a shower and leave the dishes for them. While Hanabi is busy taking a bath, Atsuya tries to anger Achan further, asking if she is angry. As expected, Achan tells Atsuya that she is too angry with him.
Asking the obvious and then pissing her off even more? That's the indication of true love.
In no world, pissing someone off is an indication of showing love. Atsuya then tries his chance of leaning in and giving a surprise kiss to Achan, but she holds a wet sponge in front, threatening to rub it on Atsuya. Since he doesn't have any spare clothes, Atsuya backs off from the time being, but then kisses Achan out of nowhere. This sparks a sudden reaction from Achan as she brutally slaps Atsuya. Later, Atsuya sits shirtless while he gets a scolding from Achan for ruining her plans with Hanabi. However, Atsuya shows her the reality, mentioning how she knows that she is never going to make Hanabi fall in love with her. Although Achan shows some worry, she snaps back, telling Atsuya that's not the case. She then ends the conversation and before leaving, tells Atsuya not to come to their room at night. That night, in Hanabi's room, she and Achan share a bed with each other. During this instance, Achan is on top of Hanabi, taking the lead. Hanabi is not sure whether she should be doing this, but she decides to go with it anyway. Later that night, Hanabi wakes up from her sleep and finds a notebook on the side table. As she ends up accidentally tipping the notebook over, Hanabi sees that Achan still holds the same candy wrapper she had given her earlier. Shortly after, Hanabi makes her way outside and meets with Atsuya, who offers to go on a walk. The two then find themselves neat a lake. There, Atsuya asks Hanabi about the one that she fancies, prompting Hanabi to give an inconclusive answer. Atsuya then jumps straight to the topic, telling Hanabi not to toy with Achan's feelings anymore. After this conversation, Hanabi is always careful when she is interacting with Achan and is always trying to find an opportunity to discuss their relation. But Hanabi is not sure either with what she wants. One time, Achan tries to come forward and apologizes to Hanabi for using her for her selfish gains. Although Hanabi tries to interrupt her and explain that she is doing the same, Achan doesn't give her a chance. That night, Achan stands in the middle of the heavy rain, wanting to spend some time alone, but Hanabi quickly approaches her and confesses that she has been using her for her selfish gains as well. Moreover, she asks Achan to stay friends with her, sparking a rage-filled reaction with Achan. She tells Hanabi how it's not an easy task to just forget true feelings for someone. Eventually, Achan decides to keep friendly relations with Hanabi. The next day, Hanabi leaves and Achan goes to treat Atsuya with his sickness. There, Atsuya reminds Achan that she still has him no matter what. Hearing such words also gives a sense of belonging to Achan, as she recalls how Atsuya went through the same thing as her, so she decides to put her trust in him. Meanwhile, Hanabi makes her way back to the school. She realizes that it's been so long since she has last been here. Moreover, it is still a bit difficult for her to take her regular classes as she has to face Kanae every day. Later, Hanabi comes across Moka, who tells her how she has always cared for Mugi more deeply and more passionately. This enables Hanabi to realize that she has always stayed dependent on others and never once tried to walk out on her own. On the other hand, Akane and Mugi are sharing bed with each other yet again. There, Mugi politely asks Akane to stop acting like she is a teacher here, but Akane refuses, openly accepting that she is not ashamed for anything that she is doing, and even asks Mugi to address her as teacher while doing her. Mugi looks like he is aware that he is just being toyed with, but he has no regrets and continues to do whatever Akane tells him to. We then jump back to Akane's past and find out more about her first ever boy that she did it with. He was 2 years older than her, and Akane was in the middle of her high school years. Moreover, the boy was quite famous and every girl wanted him. Akane was the one who ended up sleeping with her, and she just let him take the lead that day since he was already experienced. Akane reflects how she has always wanted to make other girls envious of her. That day, she was being treated with love exactly how she thinks she is worth being treated. But this is something that every girl wants, and Akane is no different. What sets her apart is her selfishness and desire to not let other girls have what she has. This is why she has decided to sleep with Mugi, since she wants to take that luxury away from Hanabi. In the present, Akane wakes up and asks Mugi if he thinks she is boring. Quickly, Akane understands that she is being too vulnerable and refrains from saying anything further.
Vulnerable? She's practically a public property by now.
In other words, she is for the streets. Meanwhile, Mugi showers praises for Akane, telling her everything that he likes about her. He then asks Akane if she would like to go to a place of her choice. This is where Akane decides to play her game and tells Mugi that she will have to spend some time with Kanae now? Intentionally? Akane ends up using words she is sure are going to deeply hurt Mugi. She questions herself why she keeps doing this, but then she also answers herself, realizing this is all she knows, and this is the only way she can keep herself standing. Later in the classroom, Mugi is confused with his feelings for Akane and vice versa. He tries to keep his mind away as much as possible, but reaches his limit. Eventually, he gets up and makes his way to Akane in a private room. There, he tells her not to go with Kanai. In response, Akane proceeds to seduce Mugi, asking if he is getting jealous. Mugi then takes a step further, kisses Akane, pins her to a desk, and once again asks her not to meet with Kanai. He also tells her that he has started to hate her, but Akane continues to use her ways and tells Mugi that she actually likes him. Later, Akane is on a date with Kanai, but this time she doesn't feel anything. Moreover, what she is feeling is that she is the only one pursuing this relationship and not Kanai, so she decides to leave him. As their date comes to an end, Akane has completely made her mind to leave Kanai. There, an ex of Akane arrives with his girlfriend and calls her an escort. Although Akane wants to act furiously, she keeps herself calm and doesn't say a word, waiting for her ex to finish. He then ends up telling Kanai to stay away from her and runs off. Akane then, filled with shame, turns to Kanai and accepts openly that she is an escort. She decides to use this as an opportunity to make Kanai hate her completely. She even tells him how she enjoys sleeping with other men and adds that she would never stop. Akane thinks that this is enough damage and tells Kanai that this is most likely going to be their last date. While she is leaving, Akane is sure that she now has the opportunity to go back to her old life, but unexpectedly, Kanai chases Akane and holds her hand, making her come to a stop. He tells Akane that he accepts her how she is and is okay with her not wanting to change. This completely stuns Akane, as she never relied on any men in her life, but this time, she was the one not wanting to let go instead of the man she is with. That night, Akane enjoys a bath with Mugi after calling her. There, Akane questions Mugi if he likes the fact that she sleeps with other men, but Mugi straight up tells her that he doesn't. Akane shares the same thoughts and tells Mugi that she wouldn't like someone she has fallen for to sleep with someone else either, but she emphasizes how such a situation has never occurred. Mugi then reminisces how childish Akane really is. He thinks about how he is making so many efforts to win Akane's heart, yet she is someone who is not going to change. Mugi also thinks back to Mocha, who loved him despite knowing that he can never be hers. He then recalls Hanabi's advice of wanting to change himself if he wants to change others. So, Mugi decides to take Hanabi's advice and decides not to chase after signs anymore. Back in the present, Mugi approaches Akane and abruptly tells her that he wants to go on a date. At first, Akane suggests that they discuss about this later, but Mugi pushes it further, acknowledging that he is stupidly in love with her. At the end, Akane ends up agreeing to go on a date with Mugi, but the poor guy has realized that he fumbled badly. Akane narrates how she wants to find out about everyone's feelings, find everything they are interested in, and then blur the lines between them. She also agrees to go on a date with Mugi, but only for one night. In reality, she has decided to spend her next week with Kanai. She then thinks about a past event where one of her acquaintances was mad that Akane spent the night in someone else's bed. She wonders if she crossed the line that day, but she is sure that she was never meant to get those feelings of crossing the limits because she has always felt disconnected from everyone else. Back in school, Hanabi gets questioned about how things have been going with her. The students ask her about her relation with Mugi and why she is not seen with him anymore. Hanabi then reveals that she hasn't met with Mugi since last summer and even mentions that it's better that they both don't meet for some time. Meanwhile, Akane and Kanai are enjoying their date in another city. After buying her an ice cream, Kanai tells Akane that she is surprisingly easy to get along with, but Akane thinks that it's only because she has stopped putting an act.
My guy Mugi needs justice.
What about my girl Hanabi? She didn't even get laid with her loved one.
Kanai then tells Akane that she should act more like this in school. This makes Akane turn around and warn Kanai that such a thing is never going to happen. Just then, Kanai points out how Akane's ice cream is going to melt. Seeing him care for her so much gives Akane an idea. She pushes her ice cream forward, making Kanai take a bite out of it. The two then make their way into the room. There, Kanai begins to appreciate the view, but Akane doesn't want to beat around the bush. She wants to get into the gist of the things, wanting to find out where her relationship stands with Kanai. She tries to seduce him by grabbing him to her bed, but Kanai makes an excuse and leaves. Kanai is then seen enjoying a hot spring, recalling how he once went to a hot spring with his mother once as well, but he quickly snaps back, realizing that he has to go back to his room since he is on a date with Akane. While dressing up, Kanai accidentally drops his glasses and they break, creating yet another problem for him. Somehow, Kanai ends up making his way back to his room. There, he wants to stargaze with Akane, but is not sure whether she will like the idea. As they both sit face to face, Kanai finds his courage and tells Akane how beautiful she is. Instead instead of responding to the compliment, Akane asks Kanai what he means by when he said that she doesn't have to change. Kanai explains that she has no problem with Akane sleeping with as many men if she likes it and not doing it forcibly. When Akane questions how he can be okay with this, Kanai reveals that it's because he loves her. Kanai then leans onto Akane, kisses her forehead, and tells Akane that it's a bit hard to explain why he loves her so much. The two then share an intimate moment with each other. The next day, Kanai makes another proposal to Akane, which stuns her greatly. This time, he proposes to marry Akane. Without giving it much thought, Akane agrees to marrying Kanai, but on one condition: she is going to cheat. Having no problem with that, Kanai doesn't mind. Akane is doing this because she wants to see if this is all just an illusion. Coming back to the city, Akane meets with Mugi for their date. There, Mugi suggests that they head back to the cafe this time as well. Mugi seems to be aware that this might be his first and last date with Akane, but he wants to make the best of it. He then takes her to the top floor of a tall buildings. Seeing the ground view from there leaves Akane excited. In that moment, Mugi realizes that she has been the closest to Akane that he can ever get. Later, Akane tells Mugi how she has always wanted to be a teacher. She also mentions how she doesn't want anyone to remember her once she passes away. However, Mugi points out how that's the polar opposite of her profession, since teaching is probably going to leave her influence on her students. But Akane explains that they are only going to remember her as a teacher and not because of her personality. That day, Mugi realizes that Akane just wants to attach herself to something to feel connected, so he tells himself that one day he is going to come for her. As the day progresses, the two find themselves having dinner at a fancy restaurant. There, Akane makes a grand revelation, telling Mugi that she is going to get married. Initially, Mugi fights with himself, wanting to tell Akane so many things. He wants to pour his heart out, but doesn't end up doing that. He then settles with congratulating Akane for this grand occasion, even though it's eating him from inside. As their date comes to an end, Akane prepares herself to bid Mugi farewell. She tells him that she enjoyed his face and asks if he thinks she is a terrible person. Mugi responds with a yes, but also